The once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be a specially trained crew member safely diving to the Titanic wreckage site.
Adventure, exploration and research for the seriously wealthy, now literally descended into a cold, dark race against time. The desperate attempt to find the OceanGate submarine paralleling the Titanic shipwreck it was visiting off the eastern seaboard of America. In the past hour, US Coast Guard said a rescue ship is now in place with ROV, an unmanned search submarine.
Today, the vessel Deep Energy, a 194-meter pipe-laying vessel, arrived on scene with underwater ROV capability. They have rendezvoused with the vessel Polar Prince and commenced an ROV dive at the last known of the position of the Titan and the approximate position of the Titanic wreck. That operation is currently ongoing.
British understatement from an American Coast Guard. And note, he's only talking about the search, never mind any possible rescue plan. 5 people are on board, believed to be Stockton Rush, who founded the dive exploration company OceanGate, charging around $250,000 per person to gaze on the wreckage of the Titanic.
5 individuals can go on each dive. 3 of those are what we call mission specialists. So those are the folks who help finance the mission, but they are also active participants.
The other 4 passengers are said to be the British billionaire entrepreneur Hamish Harding, Shahzada Dawood, a member of the Prince's Trust Charities Global Advisory Board, his 19-year-old son Suleiman, and the final passenger, the French explorer Paul-Henri Nagelet. Taking people into this environment is what the tourism business is all about. The exact opposite of commercial diving. They take people out for obvious reasons.
I was for 15 years in the North Sea.
Doug Niven has many years' experience of submersible diving around the world.
The oil industry, as soon as there was an alternative to people going in the water, that's what we moved to, because as soon as you get people in water, it's huge risk. And I think people should carefully consider what they're doing, and the companies that provide that need to think about backup systems.
And in this case, the fundamental safety system for commercial diving, a backup sub, simply wasn't there.
We were always diving with a second manned submersible on board, so that if there was trouble with the first one, you've got the opportunity to go down and assist with an equivalent submersible.
So in a situation where you go down to these sort of depths, several thousand meters, way deeper than the North Sea, with no backup submersible, what do you make of that?
Well, it's extremely risky. It really is extremely risky, and these people are taking a big chance on health and safety.
Stockton Rush himself publicised the simplicity of the sub's design.
It's got one button, and that's it. Yeah, so we run the sub with this game controller. It's made by Logitech, but it's basically a Sony PlayStation style controller. I got these from Camper World.
Last year, the US TV station CBS filmed on the sub and had to sign this safety waiver.
An experimental submersible vessel that has not been approved or certified by any regulatory body and could result in physical injury, disability, emotional trauma, or death.
The sub would have taken around 2.5 hours to reach the wreckage of the Titanic. She dived Sunday morning 8:15 local time. These pictures the last time the ship was seen. 1 hour 45 minutes into the descent, at 10 a.m, contact stopped. At their destination, there's no light. Water pressure outside the sub's equivalent to having the Empire State Building on top of you. Temperature 2 Celsius. The passengers will have warm clothing, and as of now, they have 39 hours of oxygen left. The OceanGate Titan sends a ping to the Polar Prince, the mothership on the surface, every 15 minutes. But for at least 7 hours, that did not happen, triggering a distress call to the US Coast Guard.
As soon as we received the report on Sunday evening, we immediately launched search efforts. We flew assets that evening, and we've continued constant surface and air asset searches since that point.
The deepest ever rescue was in 1973, extracting 2 divers from the Irish Sea. They got out with a reported 12 minutes of oxygen left after 72 hours. 1,500 feet, just 150 miles off Ireland. This could be more than 14,000 feet, almost 400 miles off Canada. UK government officials are in contact with the families. France is sending a vessel equipped with an exploration robot. The wreck of the Belfast-built Titanic, which sank in 1912 when it hit an iceberg, killing more than 1,500 passengers and crew, was discovered in 1985, 370 miles off the coast of Newfoundland in Canada. Now again the epicenter of an international rescue operation.
Alex Thompson reporting there. So let's take a closer look at the vessel and its journey now, because we know that the sub was transported by a research boat from Newfoundland, taken 435 miles south over 2 days to a remote area of the Atlantic near the Titanic wreckage site. And it's here that at 6 a.m. on Sunday, the submersible was launched. Now, the descent to the North Atlantic floor is 3,800 meters. And as you've heard, should have taken around 2.5 hours, but 1 hour and 45 minutes in, all contact with the vessel was lost. The Titan carries 4 passengers and 1 pilot with very little space on board. It's just 6.7 meters long, so for reference, that's about a third longer than you're seeing on this model here. So an incredibly tight space, with real concerns now about oxygen supplies. According to the operator, OceanGate, it's equipped with 3 different oxygen systems, including some scuba tanks under the floor panels. And it's built, as you've heard, to provide oxygen for around 96 hours. And the search team's latest estimate means that this would run out on Thursday morning, our time. A correspondent with US broadcaster CBS, who went on a previous trip in the vessel, said they were all sealed inside it by bolts, meaning the only way out was with the assistance of an external team. Now, the Titan usually sends sonar signals to communicate with its partner boat up on the surface, and if positioned correctly, it can send short text messages too, all of which stopped unexpectedly on Sunday. Matt.
Thanks, Kane. Well, David Mearns is a deep-sea shipwreck hunter and friend of the 2 missing explorers, British businessman Hamish Harding and Paul-Henri Narjolet, a former French Navy diver. Thank you very much for coming on the programme. David, on what must be a very difficult day for you, because of, we're all desperately hoping that they're still fine. Assuming optimistically for a moment that they're still alive, what must it be like inside that metal capsule at such depths, in such darkness, with so much terror?
Well, it's your worst nightmare. I'm sure that PH and Hamish and everybody who boarded that sub never thought this would happen. It would be a horrific experience, and the only thing that I can feel somewhat sort of that lessens it is the fact that I know 2 of the gentlemen, and I know that they are very calm, cool, and composed people that have this kind of training to be able to know what to do. And hopefully Stockton Rush, I think that's in his background as well. But irregardless of that, they must be wondering what's happening above them to try to effect their rescue.
We saw in Alex's piece that actually the controls inside the capsule are incredibly simple. I mean, what can they do?
In the sub, nothing. The only thing they can do, and there's some reports that I've just read from my own club, which is how I know Hamish, is that somebody today has heard some tapping. Now, they've got sonar buoys out there. There may be some other hydrophones that the mothership, the Polar Prince, had in the water. It's hard to imagine how they could have heard that, but still, they're at least trying to operate or encourage the rescue efforts to continue on and to be redoubled on the fact that they've heard something which suggests that the men are alive in the submersible.
I mean, assuming that they still have those 39 hours of oxygen left, what do you need to do in order to conserve the maximum amount of oxygen available?
You have to You have to be relaxed. You have to lower your heart rate. You have to breathe shallowly. You have to, minimize your movements. The main thing is you can't panic, and there's nothing that they can do. And fortunately, there's 3 people in there. I don't know anything about the father and the son, but there's 3 people in there that I believe would handle this as well as you possibly could, considering the situation that they're in.
Do you think the journey is too risky?
Well, I think today's not a day to be asking questions like that. Today's a day, and until time is run out, until they're recovered, that we should be focused on getting those men back home. But there should definitely be an investigation into this, what happened, whatever the outcome is, what happened, and our industry needs to take a look at itself about whether this is an appropriate thing to do, to take passengers on really, they are risky. There's no doubt about it. Anybody who signed that waiver would know. I know Hamish would know. Listen, Hamish has been down to the Marianas Trench and a submersible even smaller, totally different type of submersible, but nearly 3 times the depth of the Titanic. So he certainly knows the risk, and PH has lived his life knowing these risks. But whether, the other parties know that, I don't know. But either way, an investigation should happen, and then a lesson should be learned to prevent this, because this is an extremely rare occurrence. I mean, your own package indicated the previous episode of not a military, but a commercial type of submarine having this, being in this predicament was 40 years ago.
Finally,
and it's
David,
not happened in my commercial.
Indeed, yeah. And just finally, David, to those of us who've never been this, deep into the sea, who may fail to understand the allure of this, what is the allure of going so deep, so dark?
It's what drives people: the curiosity, fascination. The Titanic is the most famous shipwreck in the world, and that's why there's all this media attention and all these. It's, in one sense, it's helped this rescue effort by happening at the most famous location in the North Atlantic, and people are gripped by that. And Hamish is an extreme adventurer. He's a very serious person, but he's also somebody who enjoys his life doing things like this. PH, on the other hand, does it professionally.
Right.
So I don't think we can question why they do it. We just know they're there and that they need our help.
And we hope the best for them. David Mearns, thank you very much indeed.